I didn't do a proper pre-flight check.
A few videos ago, I tested the tracking capabilities, tracking a vehicle using my DJI Mavic 3, the Wallace. He performed admirably and he tracked the car successfully for down a 2-mile winding track, through trees and over other barriers and obstacles. He has all-round obstacle avoidance, which is a really important feature if you are going to be tracking yourself while you're in a vehicle. So I've come out today to test the exact same route using Caledonia, my DJI Mini 3 Pro, to see how she compares with the DJI Mavic 3. Now, Caledonia doesn't have all-round obstacle avoidance. She has a built-in tracking feature through DJI's software, but her obstacle avoidance is only to the front and to the rear, and then her landing sensors. So this might be a bit tricky for her to negotiate the winding parts of the road with the trees on either side, but she may do it very well. There's only one way to find out, and that's to run the test. And I'm now going to set her to track by drawing a square around her, selecting active track in trace mode. It looks like she's following me now. And I think I'm just going to have to go at a slower speed than I did with the Mavic 3 for her to keep up with me. So I think the maximum speed I went with the Wallace, the Mavic 3, was between 28 and 30 miles an hour, and he kept up no bother. I don't know if Caledonia will be able to do that, but I'm happy to go a bit slower anyway, because the potholes and the condition of this road is absolutely terrible anyway. So I should really not be hearing down it in any event if I don't want to ruin the car. Right, so here's the first wee task, is going around quite a tight bend. I'd say a 90-degree bend with trees on either side. And Caledonia handled that one very well. Just straightening up again behind me. And here's the next task, another 90-degree bend, this time to the left, with trees on either side. And she's handling that well too. Because she's tracking from behind, it means that her front obstacle avoidance sensors are the ones that are going to be working the hardest. And because they are quite good, she should be able to do this tracking test without too much trouble. So this is a test here. This is another 90-degree turn, and this one, it's with trees on the other side, with thin trees without a lot of leaves at this time of year. Okay, so she's handling that fine. She seems to be over tracking a wee bit and then correcting herself. Whereas, if I remember correctly, the Mavic 3 didn't do that. He didn't over track, and so therefore didn't have to make any corrections the way Caledonia on my Mini 3 Pro appears to be having to do.
So let me interrupt the video for just a minute or two to tell you why I think, in fact, I'm pretty sure, why Caledonia didn't track as well as she could have. Although she tracked very, very well, it seemed that at some point she was over-tracking and then catching back up. And when you see her in flight, sometimes she seems to be going a bit from side to side before stabilising. Well, if you look at the very beginning of the video and pay close attention to the propellers on Caledonia, you might notice something. And what you'll have seen there is that I didn't do a proper pre-flight check on Caledonia. I didn't check all of our propellers. And in fact, this is one of our propellers. And this is how she flew, with the tip completely broken off. Now, I don't know how this tip was broken off. All I do know is that I didn't complete the proper check that I should have done before I flew her. And as she was flying with one of her 8 propellers broken off, not in half, but a good inch of the tip chunked off, that's probably why she was over-tracking and compensating by coming back and not flying as stably, if that's even a word, as she probably would have done had she been wearing 8 proper props. So, a good lesson: make sure, unlike me, you do a proper check of all of your props and the arms and the casing of your drone before you send her up.
That's okay, as long as you... Oh, and here we go once again, the 360 is down. Unfortunately, again, the belt and braces have taken care of that, and I'll just put it back on the roof. Right, and let's head back down, hoping that Caledonia can pick me back up. Well, she still has me locked. And here she goes, following me again. Right, okay, doing all right. So far so good. And I think the angle that I have Caledonia set to this time, which is a bit higher up, and the gimbal is tilted not so low, you can get to see a bit more of the scenery and the countryside around here. Right, we're coming to quite a difficult part now. Trees on either side and a couple of bends with these trees to negotiate. So this, if she's going to fail anywhere, I think it's going to be here, and hopefully she doesn't crash into one of the trees, because that would prove extremely difficult to retrieve her. And I've actually been thinking about, what will I do if she does crash into the trees? And I have to watch her that she doesn't over-track into the trees ahead. But if she does crash into one of the trees and is stuck up there, what will I do? Because the trees are very, very thick and impossible to climb, so there would be no way of getting up there. And I was thinking on the way up, well, I could get a fishing line and a couple of hooks, or grappling hooks, and attach them to the Wallace, my Mavic 3, fly him in cine mode over the top if I manage to locate Caledonia, and see if I could airlift Caledonia out of any tree that she happens to get stuck in. So if the worst happens here and Caledonia does collide with a tree and get stuck up in one, it won't be a total disaster, because it'll lead to another video where I take the Wallace out and try to do an air recovery mission. But watching the way that Caledonia is tracking and avoiding the trees, I don't think she's going to need any kind of recovery whatsoever. Right, these potholes, I have to be careful here. Oh, look at these potholes, man. Yeah, I think she's going to complete this track without any problems at all. And that's most of the trees actually done now. So she doesn't have any other trees to negotiate, and the only things left to negotiate that the Wallace had to were the barriers, the 2 barriers near the bottom of the track. And I'm about 28 miles per hour here, and Caledonia's fallen along without any problem. So the tracking feature and the front obstacle avoidance on this wee mini drone is absolutely fantastic, and she's performing just as well, I would say, as the Mavic 3 did, the Wallace, as he did. maybe a wee touch of over tracking from the Mini Pro, and then a self-correction that didn't happen with the Mavic 3. But apart from that was no problem. It didn't cause any issues, and that was fine. So I'm going to slow down a little bit because I look like I'm getting away. I'm getting away from her quite a bit, but she seems to be. She is still following. She's keeping.
Battery level is low.
Right, so
Aircraft will return to the home point in 10 seconds.
we don't want that. We absolutely do not want her to return to the home point. Right, so I didn't come out with a fully charged battery here. I didn't realise she wasn't fully charged until I was actually out here. So I'll try my best to get down to the barriers. And see, in fact, what I'll do is I'll maybe just quickly update the home point here. Oh, safety. Quickly update the home point to the controller. So that's done. So just in case we don't make it, I know now. I know that. How do I get that? But okay, that's it. Okay, right. So I've updated.
Home point updated.
Right, the home point's updated. So I know she won't be going up to the top of the hill now. I've updated it to controller, so even in the event that she does start to return to home, she won't be going that far. Right, I can see the barriers in the distance. Hopefully she'll have enough. Right, 28% left. Now that I've updated the home point, we should be fine to carry on down to the barriers. She won't give me another return to home point alert until 20%. She's at 24 just now. So we should have enough battery power left to get to the barrier, both barriers, and see how she negotiates those. I believe there's a cattle grid coming up just around here.
Battery level is low.
Right, cancel
Aircraft
that
will
again.
return to the home point in 10 seconds.
And I'll update the home point just once again to the controller. Okay. Right.
Home point updated.
Right. These are the tricky wee trees that don't have any leaves on them now, but she's up high enough to avoid them, and you see how she's up quite a bit higher than the Wallace my Mavic 3 was for this test. But it's really about the tracking here rather than the obstacle avoidance. This is a tracking test. Now the two barriers are up just ahead, and hopefully I'll have enough battery power to just get her through both barriers. In fact, she's up so high that the
Battery level is low.
barriers
Aircraft will return to the home point in 10 seconds.
wouldn't be a problem. I'll just get through the barrier. And she'll fly way over the top of it. She's up very high at the moment, and that's fine. To the second barrier, and then I'll pull over and bring her into land. There we go, let's pull over. Just here and get her in.
Landing.
So that went well as far as I'm concerned. She performed perfectly. She was up a lot higher than the test that I did with the Mavic 3, but that's okay. This test was about the tracking facility of the Mini 3 Pro. Can she track a vehicle over a distance of about 2 miles down a wee winding track with trees and other obstacles on either side? And she managed to do it fine. So there we go. If you like that, give us a thumbs up. See you on the next one.